everyone, Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Good evening, Rush Nation. We are back. It's already a week 3 slate that we're going to talk about, although we're going to talk more about what's happened as opposed to week 3. But it's mad. It's mad. We're already sort of, if you're putting in this in real terms, like 10-15% of the season's already gone in fantasy football. It feels like it just started, and yet we're already racing away. But it's been a busy one, and luckily, you don't have to just listen to my dulcet tones. There is someone here who has got even more dulcet tones than me, especially according to the chat last week with people saying that they have to turn the volume down or the speed down so they can understand it. Danny, how you doing, my friend?
Yeah, oh god, evening, guys. Yeah, I think they normally play it in times 1.5 when it's just you, but for me, they've had to probably do it in half the speed. Yeah.
It is funny. Like, someone did tell me I have a really good voice for 2, like for 2x, and I was like, yeah, sure. I mean, I listen to a lot of stuff in 2x, so like people say, you don't mind if I listen to you in 2x? But no, you got to absorb the information somehow. I'm not the only source of truth. And yeah, it's just always funny. Like people it's like the debate over dark mode and light mode. People just like what, you listen to stuff in 2x? But it's all grand. Like I think you do, right? There's plenty of other stuff in the world to worry about. Like worry about how people listen to content. But yeah, I mean, I actually haven't tried to listen to you in 2x. I might try and do that as an exercise.
I've never actually tried. I've always just listened to podcasts at the normal speed. I've never ever tried to do it with the faster ones.
I think it depends on, like, for me, I'm quite time poor. So like for me, it makes sense to try it and do it. So yeah, I do listen to a lot of stuff in 2x. You just get used to it. It's just tuning your ears. It's just all it is. It is faster. It cuts the gaps. It just means you can just absorb more content. If you are time poor, it makes a lot of sense. If you're not time poor, then I wouldn't. I don't have like 7 hours a day to listen to content on top of everything else I do. So it kind of just it just allows me to get everything in I need to get in. But again, it's different for everybody. You do you, whatever works. But yeah, I do actually want to try you in 2x this week, and I'll tell you what it's like, because I haven't actually. I don't listen back to myself. I don't like the sound of my voice. So
shout out to Mugs NFL. While I'm thinking about it, I'm just seeing my mug in the reflection in the screen. That's he literally makes them on anything you want. He does NFL, but he does football, you name it. So I got a neighbour's mug, as you can see, and I also got a Jack Grealish one, being an Everton fan. So shout out to Mug. He sent them to Ireland free, and they were the same price as what they would have been in England. Turns up a few days later. Very good.
What a legend. He is the reigning FFCC champion. Of course, that reign has come to an end. He not only was eliminated in round 1 and in the went into the Squid Game, he's been eliminated from that. So he is officially out of this year's competition. So it is it is a shame that reign has come to an end so quickly, but he will always have the trophy. I gave him the courtesy that he'd been eliminated before he went public. I was like, just to let you know. But yeah, absolutely superb bloke. I met Patrick, who runs Mugs NFL. He was at my Scott Fishbowl draft. Absolute legend. Really, really good bloke. Despite the fact he supports the Eagles, but you know. Which is helpful because you're wearing Eagles green, so maybe that was in solidarity to him, even though you're not an Eagles fan. In fact, you can't be an Eagles fan being a Giants fan; that would go down even worse.
No, exactly.
We're already off the rails. It's 5 minutes in. That's pretty standard if you've been listening to this show for a long time. If you haven't been listening to this show for a long time, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you. We've been growing at a considerable rate over the previous weeks and months, and plenty of ways you can get involved. We have the Discord, which is thriving. We have the Patreon. I'm dropping as much stuff in there as I can in terms of podcasts and thoughts and processes. Someone's asking me about how we're doing Kim K, and there's a reason I have got that, by the way, monocle on my sub name today. So I have a day job. I don't do this professionally. If you're watching this for the first time or recent, you're like, what's going on? And so in my day job, I was in the office a couple of days ago, and I was sitting down, and my colleague Joe, shout out Joe, was explaining to my other colleagues, because he's big into college football and NFL. So we talk a lot of NFL stuff. He's not big on the fantasy side. I'll tell him I do. He's watched some of the podcast. And he was trying to explain to everyone like about how many views and like how big our channel is. And he said he is the Kim Kardashian of UK fantasy football. And that's how he described me. And I said, I'm going to take that, and I've got a little subline underneath, and I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that and shout him out. So, Joe, I did exactly as I said I would. Of course, you'd have no doubt, but cracking bloke, great colleague, and yeah, so now it's a nickname that's sort of stuck a little bit, I guess, in there. So yeah, I said I was going to do it and did. So that's where that has come from this week. But we're going to get into the show. We have got it's been an interesting week too. The message last week was don't panic. I think the message is very much the same to people, like don't panic. But I don't know about you, Danny, and I'm going to ask you this question because you asked me lots of questions. There seems to be more panic earlier than in previous years, because I'm genuinely in like group chats and online, and I genuinely feel people have lost their minds. Like,
yeah, I'm like,
what's going on?
So the way I would look at it is there was so much noise and so much buzz around the running backs and the tight ends this year. You know, there's 20 running backs who will all be starting. They're going to be amazing. So everyone just got into it thinking it's going to happen from week one, when that never really happens. It's like a gradual thing, and they might be firing halfway through the season, but rarely do they go in day one and just completely dominate from day one. And I think people are starting to panic because they've seen all these running backs that they thought were going to be amazing straight away who haven't been delivering yet. And it's not that it's unusual. It's just that there's so many of them. And people have stacked their teams full of these running backs and maybe not having the experienced players with them. And then all of a sudden they're 2-0 having a heart attack because those players haven't actually kicked on yet. But it's about patience.
It is about patience. It is a marathon, not a sprint, despite how quickly the season does go. I think the funny thing for me, as I'm sort of thinking about the season, is people are sitting there talking about injuries, and I went and actually did some research, and the only top 50 ADP player, and he's borderline top 50 depending in the league you were in, is George Kittle. It's the only top 50 player that has got.
There's not been many injuries. If you take quarterbacks out of the equation, there hasn't been many yet.
No, I was going to say that actually, if you look at since 2020, there have been less injuries this year than there have at any other point of the last 5 years when you consider fantasy relevant players. I want to exclude all, like the Buccaneers O-line, for example, which are making up more injuries than anything else since they've lost 4 starters on the O-line in 2 weeks.
But if you take some of those players that were what's name, if you take some of those players and you look at, like, say, I don't know, Genty, he's going at the back end of round 1, early round 2, hasn't started fast when it comes to scoring yet. Then you've got players like Hampton in round 3, maybe round 4, Henderson or Harvey, all of these running backs. None of them, like, it's only 2 games in, but they're being tested and getting into it, and they haven't been doing a full step so far. So, like,
yeah, but I think it's expectation management at the same time. Like, this is the whole point of, we talked about this, that Dynasty is getting more of an influence in redraft.
Yeah,
and as a result, people are drafting these younger assets earlier, and that's because they're drafting them earlier. Their expectations are going sky high. And actually,
they're doubling up on them, though. That's the other thing as well, is they're not just drafting, say, Genty. They're drafting Genty and Hampton together instead of like having one experienced one with one of the rookies and having someone to fall back on. And that's where people are getting unstuck, is they're starting straight away with all of the rookies and then they're a few down.
Sure. And I'll get to that in a minute. I have had a question in the chat from Smokey the Cat. What's up, guys? Which side do you prefer? Puka and Najee or Bucky Irving and Amari and Hampton? Also, would you rather have Drake London or Ashton Jeanty? Now, again, this question, we talk about context. We talked about it on the show last week. So, Smokey, if you're still watching, then, scoring, how many teams in the league, these sort of questions or these sort of information sort of key to this. I mean, on the surface of no additional context, I'm always taking the Bucky Irving and Amari and Hampton side. Because you've got two fantasy service players versus one, and they'll always outscore what Puka does, despite what Puka is doing right now. And then you've got Puka and his injury issues as well. And then who would I rather have, Drake London or Ashton Jeanty? Again, it kind of depends on how roster stacked you are. And I'll get into all the rookie running backs. I think it's probably good to talk about all these different situations, and let's do some expectation management and try and understand what's going on, because I think it's really important that people don't have the tolerance that they probably had. A lot of that's driven by ADP. I talked about this on the Patreon cast earlier, that we're talking about Brian Thomas Jr. I was talking about Brian Thomas Jr. And I was saying that if Brian Thomas Jr. was a third or fourth round pick, the amount of chat would not be existent.
Yeah.
The narrative would be completely different. It's completely driven by his ADP. Now, ADP dies the moment that the draft is done and you've picked your team, and too many people are too mulled into ADP. That's a mindset thing that needs to change if you want to be successful continually in ADP. That ADP dies the moment you have finished the draft. So, with that in mind, if we go through all of these situations, they're all very, very different when it comes to the running backs. We'll start with Jeanty. Yeah. Jeanty is getting the workload that everybody expected. There is not, you can look at all the touches. You could say maybe he should be getting a couple more in the passing game. But for the most part, you're looking at what Ashton Jeanty is doing in games, and you're looking at his workload, and you're saying, actually, there's not too much here that I'm particularly worried about in terms of what he's doing. You're looking at the overall numbers are there. The only thing I would say is the snaps are a little low if you're focused on snaps. But actually, if you look at it, running routes 31% of the time, you'd expect that to be a little higher. But he had 3 high-value touches, 11 low-value touches. They had no touches inside the 10, but that was the entire team. Yeah, there could be an argument that he could be doing a little more in the passing game, for sure. But he had 4 targets and 3 catches for 1 yard. I mean, that says a lot. The routes did 4. I think it was more a coach's decision to potentially protect him. And I think that probably makes a part of it. But when you're looking at Jeanty, it's not necessarily, it's not really, people, I've seen things about, he's not explosive. He's not making guys miss. He's not as good as people thought he was going to be. That Raiders O-line is absolute garbage. Like, it's absolute garbage. Like, he is behind an absolutely appalling offensive line. And so when you're in that already, and you're already looking at like where he's getting the ball, the touches he's got, everything that he is doing, you're looking at all of these numbers and you're like, well, actually, a lot of this is not really on him. If I pull up some of these, I've got some stats here on him. He's averaging, he's had 30 attempts running the football. That's certainly not bad, right? 30 attempts running the football isn't terrible. All right. 81 yards. So it's not particularly great, 2.7 yards per carry, 40 rush yards a game. Not particularly great. 5 first downs he's achieved. But if you start sticking to this, his stuff rate, which is basically where he doesn't get a first down or touchdown and runs less than 4 yards on first down or less than 3 yards on any other down, it's a bit of a mouthful there, is 50%. So he has got he's getting stuff 50% of the time. 20 of his 31 touches have been behind the line of scrimmage. He is missed, or he's forced 7 missed tackles, which is impressive, right? So he is making guys miss. It's just the next guy is through there because the O-line is like Swiss cheese. So when you've got all of this going on for you, this is all because of fantasy points data, by the way. Everything he is trying to do is it's getting there. It's just a case of he's actually achieving 2 yards after contact per attempt, which is solid. Like, that is pretty solid. So if you think that his average carries is 2.7 yards a carry, and he is getting and he's getting over 2 after contact, that is telling you that basically his yards before contact is 0.7, which is telling you he gets the ball, he takes a step, he's tackled. That's not sustainable. One, that will revert to the mean because the O-line will get better, but it's on the O-line. It's not scheme. You can argue that the coaches should be doing more for him in the passing game, but he's getting hit a lot. That's the bigger concern if I'm an Ashton GT owner, isn't his usage. Is the kid's going to get hurt behind the line?
The thing is, as well, is it's a new coach with a new system as well. It's only 2 games in. Like, it's going to take time to get it right.
Of course it is. And at the end of the day, like, his success rates aren't bad. They're not outstanding. Like, I'm not sitting here and telling you that he's phenomenal, but at the end of the day, he's doing all right. Like, it's just a case of that O-line is bad. It's got to get better. And I'm not panicking. The workload is there. Yes, I'd like to see more in the passing game. I think that will come. I think part of that is protecting him. And it will come. So I think, but we talked about it. I said to people that you're buying him at his ceiling when you're drafting him at that ADP. And it wasn't ever likely that he was going to return ADP. But he should still return a top 12 season. It's just not going to look pretty for a while. We've had some things in the chat. Smokey the Cat came back and said 12-team PPR. His team is Mahomes, Puka, London, Henderson, Charbonnet, Pitts, Pickens. The bench is Harvey, Benson, White, Najee, Rice, Robinson. I'm 0-2. Hence why you want to make a move. Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one because you haven't got any running backs. So Henderson is going to be sitting for a while. Charbonnet is a number 2 pack.
It's just on that. It's funny he asks this question because what I've done today is I went out and I've made quite a lot of offers for Rashee Rice on my 2-0 teams, so he could do the reverse. Yeah, he's got Rashee Rice, who's not playing for another 4 matches. He could go out and try and offer for one of those teams that's 2-0 who's already got a good foundation. Start offering them Rashee Rice and try to turn that into some running backs that'll actually play for his team now and actually help him.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Definitely a player you can buy if you're 2-0 and you've got that ability. I like that strategy. I think looking at this with back to the context of this, Puka for Irving, and looking at the wide receivers you have, where you've got London, Rice will come back. You've got Pickens. Yeah, I mean, the problem is your bench is just littered with backs that almost taking more feels bad. I would actually probably modify the trade and see if you can shift. If you could, I know you're saying Najee, which is great, but actually you need to then farm out. If you're on an 0-2, I'd be farming out Benson or Harvey. I'd be farming out one of those to a 2-0 team as well, and just trying to get a serviceable wide receiver in there because it's kind of unbalanced, that team, and it's going to struggle a little bit there. So Yeah, it's tough. Tough situation you're in. You got a lot of backs. You need to get some wide receivers in there quick. But you need better running backs because those running backs, none of them are performing, and you're going to be 0-4, 0-5. I'd say you probably need to make 3 trades on that team, maybe more, to get it serviceable. Nino Pena's gone, need help with a start sit for tonight, if you guys don't mind. Do I bench Keon tonight versus Miami, or Marv versus San Francisco, so I can flex JCM or Ramadre, or do I keep the 2 wide receivers? Again, it kind of depends on the scoring. I assume it's a PPR league. If it's not a PPR league, then yeah, I'd be looking to bring the running back in. If it's a PPR league, it's a tough one. Marv, I have sitting around sort of top 20. Keon roundabout wide receiver 3 range. Ramadre obviously put up a good week last week, but again, I still think they're going to try and get Henderson involved a little bit there. And JCM is going to be a top 20 back, but I have him at the low end of the RB2 conversation because I think Daniels goes. If Daniels doesn't go, I might change my mind a little bit. I think in terms of, I would probably it's a tough one.
I like Coleman this week.
Yeah, I mean, my only issue with Coleman, and I've got him at 36, is does Josh Allen take the gas off?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think he does, but there is every argument that that he can. Because they are 12.5-point favorites, I think I said on the show earlier.
Massive favorites, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're the biggest favorites of the week. By the way, guys, if you're asking these questions, all my rankings are in the Discord. They're in the link. And then also on top of that, I do a matchup show. Part 1 went out tonight. I game script what all the games are with
it's the in the
point
Discord.
totals.
I put it in the Discord before.
Yeah, so it's in there. So have a look at that one. Yeah, Penny says full PPR. Yeah, I mean, Keon Coleman should be fine this week. He really should be. The question is just going to be, do they take the foot off the gas? It's a safe play. And it depends like on the rest of your lineup. If you're chasing points, I might go JCM over Coleman. Because, again, it's that situational stuff we talked about last week, Danny. Like, again, it's really hard to answer these questions without the context of, are you 2-0?
The problem we've got, though, is Coleman's playing tonight, though, isn't he? So it's the first game, so he can't really do that just at the moment.
You have a guide on the projection. If you're facing a guy who's 2-0 and he's the top scorer in the league.
Or if it's in like a Warrior Bowl or Scott Fish Bowl where you just need the most points, you go for your upside. Yeah.
I think it's a case of, if you're playing the floor play, Keon's a good floor play tonight, and he'll get solid points for you. But and again, I have him under Marv. Marv's a must start this week, I think, for me. So that's kind of where I am. It leads into the question of Cup and Coleman, and again, kind of depends on the scoring. I do have them fairly close, but I think for me, I'm probably a little bit lower on Cup, and I'm probably ranking him conservatively now. My ranks are 0.5-point PPR, so I do have Coleman a few spots higher in 0.5-point PPR than Cup, because Cup just doesn't get. Although last week he got the yardage right, so it is a little bit different. I think for me, I go Coleman. If it's a solid PPR, which it looks like it is, again, if you're looking for the safe play, the floor plays Cup, but the ceiling play in this instance might be Coleman. He's starting to put together a good season, so that'll be an interesting one to kind of watch. Pena's come back. Oh, lost you, Danny. While I'm waiting for Danny to come back. Neo Pena. Yeah, it's harder when I'm 0-2, but got a solid team. Hurts, Gibbs, Chase, BTJ, Egbuka. I mean, so Egbuka, by the way, is questionable. He didn't practice today. Now, that's a concern when you don't get a practice on Thursday. So that might change. That might change the way that we do this. And actually think, well, okay, I'd probably be taking him out of the lineup. If you're flexing, first of all, you should never have a flex player on Thursday. So for me, I'm probably putting Keon Coleman and Marv into. I'm putting Keon into the starting lineup then, I'm putting Egbuka in the flex. So when you're setting your lineups, you should never have flex players on Thursday. It reduces your flexibility. So you should set your rosters so that the flex players are the last kicking off players. Because if you get a late scratch in the warm-up, you've got more options to rotate in and out. So this is just a fantasy 101 tip. Yeah, I'm looking at who you've got here, and I think you've got Judkins in your flex, so I have him under the players you've got here. Yeah, I mean, you got a deep flex there. So for me, I'm probably bringing Coleman into the lineup for Egbuka. Actually, yeah, I'm probably starting Coleman and Marv. And then you're tossing up with the idea of if it's two flex, you're going to have the sweat on Egbuka, and that might be the decision that kind of sways it the other way for you with Judkins, JCM. I mean, JCM would be the guy for me. And actually, when I'm thinking of Egbuka, I do have him higher than Coleman, but if he's not logging practices, that's a concern. Then the Buccaneers have lost 4 members of their O-line, and as much as I've got Egbuka in my top 24, there's a candidate waiting for him to fall straight out of there. So I probably would go Marv and Coleman and put Coleman in the lineup, knowing I've got the injury to Egbuka. But your team should be really good this week. You should have some good matchups there. Got a few others. One, I'm waiting for Danny to come back. I don't know where Danny has gone. He said his computer decided to do an update and left. So he's left me single-handed. I need a wide receiver in 2 and a flex again. Don't know the scorings, but it's Higgins, Hill, Garrett Wilson, Pollard. I need a wide receiver 2 and a flex. So out of all of those, I probably have Garrett Wilson as the highest, but tied to Tyrod, that's questionable. I have T. Higgins as the lowest of those 3 wide receivers this week. That's a tough spot. Pollard, again, is a safe play, but there's no real upside, but he's getting 100% of the RB touches. On the surface of it, it depends how you want to play. If I'm chasing the ceiling, I'm probably going in. If it's PPR, I'm probably going Wilson and Hill, and I'm chasing team upside. If I'm playing the conservative play, I play Pollard and Higgins as a conservative play. And if I'm looking to maybe mitigate that and do one upside and one safe play, then I would probably be doing probably like Garrett Wilson. Well, yeah, probably Garrett Wilson, and then a Higgins and probably a Higgins would be the way I would go. Or Garrett Wilson or Pollard. I'm kind of hedging here. I don't know the scoring. I don't know your situation. Are you 2-0, 0-2? Who are you playing this week? That's an interesting one. Mark Andrews or Dalton Kincaid. I have Josh Allen in my as my quarterback, if that makes a difference. Not really. I mean, it would depend on the scoring, but I have Mark Andrews in my top 12, and I don't have Dalton Kincaid in my top 12. He's at 15. So, yeah, I'd go Mark Andrews for sure in that one. I think that's all the questions. Do keep them coming. As we're going through, I'm answering these. But again, all my ranks are in the channel, so do feel free to grab them and make the most of them. As we're continuing, I'm still waiting for Danny, who's in update purgatory. I guess I'll just continue talking about these rookie running backs. So we've just done the piece on Ginty, and I hope that either gives some reassurance or some additional panic to people. And I'll let whoever it is decide which of those it is. But I'm not worried about Ginty. I think it's just one of those particular pieces. Evan's come back with a question, then I'll get on to Hampton. 0.5 PPR, Mo and 2 need flex help. Hunter, Tootin, or Scatterbo. It's not Hunter and it's not Scatbo. As much as I think Scatbo is going to take over the job, I'm probably not betting on it this week. Tootin is probably the guy I'm going to fire up this week. He looked explosive. Travis Hunter for me, I think and Danny's back. Travis Hunter for me is way down in my rankings. They're trying to figure stuff out on offense, and I just think they're struggling to get him and BTJ the ball. And Scalabo, as much as I think he made great strides, he is in a committee. He might eventually be the lead back, but he's in a committee in a team that's going to be behind the ball, is not going to be ahead too much, isn't going to run loads. So for me, it's pretty simple. I'm going to play Tooten in that scenario. But I would also say if you're 0-5 and 0-2 in a 0.5 flag PPR, and again, another reason I go Tooten is the scoring, you probably need to make some trades if that's your flex option. As much as you've got guys that are usurping there, you clearly need to make some moves. Like for me, I'd be looking at if Troy Franklin's on your waiver wire, he's a player I'd be picking up. I think, if I'm looking at that, you're 0-2 in a 0.5 PPR league. Your flex spot is Hunter, Tooten, and Scatterbo. Says by the time that Tooten and Scatterbo get into the position where they're going to be lead back, your league season is done. So you probably need to trade one of those to a 2-0 team and let them take the weight. And you probably need to bring in somebody who's going to be doing something a bit more for your team now. I think you can recover from 0-2, you can recover from 0-3, but I think if you're starting to get into 0-4 territory, that's where it gets really difficult. Not impossible, but you're going to actually need to make a load of different changes. And I think one of the things I'm going to do on the Patreon cast next week is look at rosters that are 0-2, 0-3, and try and come up with some solutions as to how we can make some changes and go from there, because I think that is going to need to happen. It's very team specific, but I think you're probably going to have to shake it up. Danny, welcome back.
It was a good time for my computer to decide to update itself, shut the whole thing down.
Yeah, it's fine. I just answered all the questions in the chat, which was fine. That kept me going. I was just about to move on to Omarion Hampton, which is a player who, is probably not necessarily filling fantasy owners with a ton of confidence right now. But again, there's another player who I think there's some circumstance as to why he's scoring what he's scoring, and I think that there is some parts that can go through and rectify. But if you're 0-2, it's going to be a tough wait, because it's going to be a few weeks, and we'll start with his peripheral numbers. First of all, 62% of snaps compared to Najee Harris's 35. He ran routes on 50% of them, which was pretty good. He had 5 high value touches. He had 4 low value touches. He had all of the team's touches inside of the 10 as well. But his rushing yards over expected was -5, which and he did make 3 guys miss, which again is decent. But the thing we've got to understand in this game, and this is where the context is really, really, really key. And again, if you don't, one of the things I've talked about so often in our channels, Danny, is how many plays teams run, right? Yeah. So when you look at teams that are running plays, the Chargers on Monday Night Football winning that game were incredibly slow. They ran 53 plays. Like, we talked about this. I think we talked about it last week. Like, that's just bad. 53 plays is not good.
But it's not even just the plays, is it? It's more how they're playing them as well when they've got them.
Well, and that's where I'm going to get to. But yeah, 53 total plays is slow. Like, it's very, very slow. So when you've got a guy who is getting the touch rate that Omarion Hampton is on the 53 plays, on the context of it, it looks a lot better. And again, context is kind of phrasing this, that the volume is actually not too bad. It's just they didn't run many plays. And then you look at why they didn't run too many plays. Their passing rate over expected was 14.4% higher, which is just massive. And it's the second week in a row that they've done that. But what's really interesting with it is that their pass rate over expected was 14.4%, which was huge. Then you factor in the fact that it was that high, but they only dropped back to pass 32 times, which is where the volume piece is really important. So you've got this point of view now where pass rate over expected is high, so they're throwing the ball in situations you would be expecting them to run the ball. And I think part of that is they're trying to get Justin Herbert and things clicking on offense. I think that's a big part of it.
Have you seen who they're actually throwing to as well? Like that.
Well, they're spreading it around, right? And I think part of it is
who's got the most so far is Allen, isn't it? And Allen would have been picked up on most frees going really late in drafts as well, and he's got more than what Lad McConkey's got so far.
But he has, and his target per route run is higher, but his air dot is low. So his A dot is 7.7, which is slightly higher than Lad McConkey's. And again, his target per route run, so he's getting targeted 32% of the time he runs a route, which is good. It's not sustainable, but it's good. And again, people are panicking over Lad McConkey. Again, it makes sense. He had 5 targets, 32 air yards. His A dot then is 6.4 and only 20% targets per route run. It's not impressive.
Yeah.
I think the things I would be looking at if I'm sitting here analyzing the Chargers offense is they're a statistical anomaly that is unlikely to continue at what we're seeing. And so if this is true 4 weeks from now, then we have to take it very seriously. What we are looking at is 2 games very, very different in isolation for 2 very different reasons. They played in Brazil against the Chiefs, where they did pass significantly over expected because they've been burned before as a team. You don't want to take your foot off the gas to Kansas City, a team that have been to 4 Super Bowls in the last 6 years. Like, you're not sitting there. They're not a wounded animal here. You have to sit there and you have to finish. And so, I look at that game in its own isolation and go, yeah, they threw the ball more because they were effective. They were effective throwing the football. They got the result that they needed to get to by doing it. And I kind of look at that game as its own look at who they're playing and why they did what they did. This game is bizarre, right? This game against the Raiders is just weird. I can't sit here and give you a narrative as to why they threw as many times as they did. And all I can think of is they're trying to bed in their receivers. Trey Harris got a lot of preseason hype, didn't really do anything. Quentin Johnston was a little bit injured in the preseason, so he didn't get a full preseason. Keenan Allen didn't get a preseason. He was signed late. And so they're trying to figure out, I think, in these games, they're almost treating this scenario as, well, we're going to win this game. We're going to use it as a bit of a scrimmage, a bit of a preseason game scenario where we're going to just throw the ball. And I think when you've got a fixture like this against the Raiders and you kind of just got them on the rack, you can do that quite easily. So I look at them now and think, okay, so that kind of makes sense. What I really want to see is what happens to them this week. So, this week they have, and apologies, it's just escaped me. So I'm just going to quickly look up who the Chargers have this week. They have the Broncos. So defensively very sound, haven't started particularly well. But we know they're a playoff team from last year. That is where we're going to find out a little bit more about who the 2025 Chargers are and what we're going to see. So I kind of, my thoughts on the Chargers are, and Marion Hampton are, what we're seeing isn't normal. It's not sustainable. It's not going to continue to stay the way it is. I look at the peripherals on Hampton, and I give you some of the numbers on Hampton. Again, 23 rushing yards in 2 games. It's a little low, but it's not crazy when you put it in the context of what we talked about. 3.13 yards per carry, not particularly great. 6 first downs, that's okay. He's had all the team's carries inside the 5. That's pretty good. He's being stuffed, and again, we talked about this with Gene T. He is being stuffed 61% of the time, which is even higher than Gene T. A little bit of that is O-line, and the protection probably hasn't been good in running the football. I think another part of that is just that Hampton wasn't quite as polished as Gene T, and it's getting up to speed in the NFL. 4 missed tackles, forced missed tackles should be higher than that. 54 yards after contact is significant. Again, 2.35 yards after contact, which is 75% of his total yards. So then again, that's really huge considering his yards before contact is 0.78. So again, it's a similar story to Gene T, where he's getting hit very, very early. Where I would differ from Gene T is Gene T, I'm sitting there saying the O-line is like Swiss cheese, it's really bad. I think a little bit of Hampton is Hampton not fully up to speed. He's not finding the holes. He's getting tackled. The O-line, I think, could do better, but I don't think it's entirely on the O-line in this case, having looked at the tape. So I look at that scenario and think Hampton will figure it out and get better, and the yards after contact are good, that will translate to the box score sooner rather than later. But for the receivers there, I just think none of this is anything I'm taking with any weight. And I do expect McConkey to be the lead man when they play on Sunday, and we'll see what happens. We've had the question in the chat.
I was just going to say, is that Mac Jones or what? Daniel Jones?
I might guess it's Daniel Jones. Yeah. I mean, if it's Daniel Jones, then I'm starting Daniel Jones and I'm starting Bill. I don't think I even need to know the scoring in either scenario for that. I think I feel pretty confident with both of those. I have Daniel Jones at QB 11 this week, and he's the upside quarterback there for sure. Murray's a very safe play, but the upside isn't there. And then Bill over Scatterbo is not a conversation that I need to go into too much detail on. One's going to be a bell cow. The other one is a ascending running back, but he is in a committee.
We was just looking at, there was a couple of not majorly breaking news, but Brock Purdy's is in full training today, and Ibuka has missed training again today. Yeah,
I mentioned Ibuka. I think you were off, but when Nino was mentioning his team, and he brought his team up, and he had Ibuka in his lineup, and I said I would put Coleman into his starting lineup. I'd put Ibuka in the flex.
Yeah,
and then if Ibuka doesn't go, a Thursday non-practice is not a great sign and indicator to playing on Sunday.
Yeah.
And then you add in, if he's not 100% with a non-healthy offensive line that the Bucs have and the amount of injuries that they are stacking up, they will probably be a lot more cautious than they have been at any other time. So that might be one I would be really cautious on.
It also looks like Waddle's going to go tonight as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have Waddle in.
I wouldn't start him anyway, but in case people are wondering, that's all.
No, I wouldn't have him in any lineup unless it's a super deep league and you're kind of stranded. Then fine, no, but he's not a player that it should be on many fantasy radars at this very moment in time. So we've covered off. We were doing rookie running backs, weren't we? So we talked about.
What are you thinking about Henderson?
It's a good question.
Because I've seen a lot of panic with Henderson, because I've seen people talking him like he should have been. We should have drafted him sooner above other players, and now they're all of a sudden they're like, can I sell him for somebody already after 2 games?
Yeah, I'm. It's a strange one, because for me it's going as exactly as I thought it would go.
Yeah, I haven't got any Henderson. It's just the way the drafts worked. I don't have any.
No, I mean we talked about it in the off season, and when I did my rankings, and those that had access to my rankings in the off season would have seen that Ramondre Stevenson and Henderson finished up ahead, but Stevenson had a lot of early work and he had pretty significant numbers. If we look at this backfield at the moment, it's effectively a 2-headed monster. You look at this, and Stevenson's had 18 carries to Henderson's 8, 69 rushing yards to Henderson's 37. And then when we look at these numbers of what they're doing here, Henderson is making guys miss. Stevenson's making guys miss. Henderson isn't. We look at what Henderson has kind of been doing yards after contact, and it's pretty good, but it's a very small sample size of 6 yards after contact. Well, actually, it's not good. So it's 0.75 yards after contact. Sorry, I misread the line. So his yards before contact are 3.88. His yards after contact is 0.75, which means he's not gaining anything when he's getting tackled. If we flip this to Ramondre Stevenson, his yards before contact, this is almost like an inverse story, is 1.11, which means that he's actually doing a worse job in finding the holes and making the runs. But he also has a larger sample size. So I think that 3.88 of Henderson is probably slightly false. But having said that, Ramondre Stevenson's yards after contact is 2.72 per attempt, and Tootin's is, Stevenson's is 0.75, which is telling you that Henderson is still figuring it out. So Stevenson at this point, from his experience, and you got to remember that this Patriots coaching staff is all ex-Belichick. They are, no days off, do your job, turn up. They'll run with the hot hand. They'll go with the player that's making the plays. And at the moment, it is Ramondre Stevenson making plays. Now, where I would sit here and give hope to Henderson fans, Ramondre Stevenson has fumbles in him. He has bonehead plays. He has had attitude problems in the past. There is every chance that all of this does come back and Henderson is... you're going to usurp him at some point. I would imagine it's around the bye. I'd say week 8 is, and again, this is experience. It's not based on anything I've seen in Patriots camp. But these guys, Mike Vrabel, and that coaching staff, they're not here to suffer a 3-win season. They're going to get guys to play their hearts out and stack some wins. Now, they're going to be competitive. I don't think they're going to make a playoff berth, but they're going to be a competitive team. And Stevenson at this point is earning the right to play. He's earning his touches the old-fashioned way, and that's the experience versus the talent of a rookie. And what people are starting to see now is the reality that rookie running backs don't just get anointed and get given opportunities. They have to earn them. And if you look at every single rookie running back this year, Hampton got a little bit of a pass because of Najee and his eye injury. Jeanty, there's no one behind him, so he was always going to be the guy. Everyone else is in a situation where they're going to have to go and earn the ball. Henderson, Tootin, Scatterbo, all of these guys are going to have to go out there and earn their touches, and it's going to take a while. And so if you went into the season thinking Henderson is your guy, I don't know what to tell you, but that's not going to happen. And if you're 0-2 right now, because you've got a lot of these archetypal guys, you need to trade them. You need to get out because you need to put a roster together and go to the guys who can afford to wait. Because if you sit there and wait for these guys to usurp, you'll have a great roster in your toilet bowl playoffs. Like, it's just not going to translate in enough time. 0-2, you can come back from 0-3 just about. When you get 0-4, 0-5, the route back from there is brutal. And we're not getting the injuries. We're not getting those waiver wire darlings that potentially have been coming in previous years. It's a bit late. I've just seen some breaking news. I'm sure that's probably what you were going to wait for me to finish my diatribe on Henderson to tell us or not.
Which one have you looked? Oh,
Tucker Kraft. So Tucker Kraft has sustained an injury in practice, and it's a knee injury, which is definitely not that's not a good sign.
And he's just started to do well as well.
Yeah.
So Musgrave is going to be on plenty of waivers tonight.
Yeah, I would say that's going to be something that people will be doing right about now, and yeah, I think that's gonna happen.
Especially if you don't have to do waivers. Some of them you can just add straight away. Which is what I'm looking at now.
Yeah, you got a show to do first, so you got to wait. Welcome to hosting a podcast on Thursday nights. We've done a few of the rookie running backs. I would say Tootin's usurping, but it's not going to happen for him immediately. I guess, where do you want to go next?
We could go. We could, I suppose, get tonight's match out the way first. That's probably one place to go. Okay.
Yeah, I think I said this earlier on the show, and if you haven't had a chance, go back and listen to the matchup show part 1. This would be the most one-sided Thursday night football we'll see all season. I don't think you're going to see another 12.5 point handicap coming into a game. I called it wrong last week. I genuinely thought that the Commanders would get the win, and they didn't. I feel more comfortable saying that Miami are in trouble. The strange scenario here is actually the fact they're division rivals, and if you're the Bills, you probably don't want to sit there and take your foot off the gas. Now, they won't want to risk injury for sure, but they will want to make sure that they put a good beat down on Miami. They are divisional rivals. That is going to play a part in this. I don't think you're going to see Josh Allen go light on the opposition. I think this Miami Dolphins defense is as bad as any defense we have seen in the last 25 years in the NFL, maybe longer than that. You know, they gave up scoring plays on their first 10 drives to start the season, which I think is unprecedented. We look at just what this Miami defense is doing, and it is absolutely abysmal. And I just look at I just don't know what they're doing, Miami. I think this. I just look at what we're seeing here, and I just think that Buffalo will win this comfortably. They've set the over under at 49.5 tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, what that's basically selling you is this is going to be a blowout to end all blowouts. It's probably going to be like
I'll tell you what,
35-15 is what they're kind of, like that kind of like 36-14 is kind of where they're expecting this to.
I'll tell you what I've done. You can tell me whether my logic is right or not, but I have a fan team account, and there was a free showdown game. You know, you pick the 6 for the match. So I picked the Bills defense DST because I didn't think Miami's going to be doing too much, and then I've gone for what's name. Obviously, Allen, I'm captain and Cook, which means you get more points for your captain, and he keeps getting a ton of touchdowns at the moment. So I've gone for James Cook, and the only person I'd gone from a Miami point of view was Tyreek Hill, even though he's not playing particularly great. But I've stacked it with 5 Bills and 1 Miami because it should all be one-way traffic, really.
Yeah, it's really bad. I'm just checking something very quickly. I'm just looking because I think for me, I don't know the I don't know if I can see defensive. I don't know if I can see DVOA still, or if they put that behind a paywall. They haven't, which is good. That's what I was queuing up for. So if I look at Miami DVOA wise, so Miami DVOA is not the worst, but it's right up there. They're ranked 27th. Chicago, Carolina, Tennessee, New England. The Giants and Miami, the Giants are worse, but also if you look at the teams they've played in the context of that, I can't see anything else. It's hard to get the trends. So I've just sat here and looked at what they're allowing this year versus previous years, and it's just this D at the moment is notoriously bad. They're giving up 35 expected points a game, which is pretty bad. If you look at what they're doing, it's just they're really struggling. They give up a lot of points, and they played the Colts week 1, who put in a good performance and absolutely blistered them, and then the Patriots, and then this week, there's every chance you could see 50 points go up by the Bills if they're in the mood for it tonight. I said this, that I think Hill is a player who I think you have to start tonight and chase the points. I've got him in the top 20 performance because I just think they're going to need to show something.
Yeah.
And I also think Devon A. Chan is a top 12 running back this week. Again, just from what he'll do. He's the only one with any form of explosiveness this year. But there's no Darren Waller. There's no tight end notable there. Jalen Waddle might as well just be, running ghost routes because he's not getting the ball. Who else is getting the ball in that team? Yeah, I get the opinion that Tyreek Hill is not interested and isn't playing particularly well. But he, I sat in the matchup show and I was saying if I was sitting here and I was Mike McDaniels, I'd be bringing Tyreek Hill as a shallow. I'd be putting him in screens. I'd just be getting the ball to him 25 times against the Bills. I would just sit there. I'd have end arounds because he's got the speed, and I would just feed him the ball. They're going to have to run 50-ish plays tonight minimum, and they should be giving the ball half to Tyreek Hill and half to Devon Chan and just sod everyone else. And they'll still get beat by 20, but at least it will be exciting.
Yeah. I think you've probably covered it in some of your other shows, but I'd say one thing that's probably got a lot of people wondering at the moment is the QB landscape, as in, with the some who are definitely out, then there's some like Purdy where he might play or he might start and then they might take him off later on for games one because he's not fully fit. All those type of players is like, when you're trying to evaluate, do you start these players or do you take someone else in? Obviously, I know you've covered Daniel Jones quite a lot already around if you can get him in as cover, get him in straight away. But like the likes of your Brown and your Mac Jones, as if he's going to play, those ones, I think that's where people get a bit more panicky of, what do I start them or do I just have them as cover or what do I do with them?
If you're in a 1 QB league, you shouldn't have that problem.
Yeah.
There are enough QBs lying around that you shouldn't need to start a Mac Jones. You shouldn't need to start a Carson Wentz, right?
Yeah.
You shouldn't need to.
I'll give you an example though. Like I'm playing the Orkney Bowl, and it start 1 QB, and my 2 QBs are JJ McCarthy and Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
So like I've got one out, other one potentially out. So when I went on the waivers, I couldn't find like a Daniel Jones. He'd well gone, but I picked up Darnold.
Yeah.
For hopefully just for a one-off game. And if Brock Purdy's fit, then I may start Purdy anyway. But I just needed someone just in case.
I'd start Darnold.
Yeah.
I don't believe Brock Purdy's going to play this week. I just don't.
They've won 2 games, haven't they? They don't
exactly that, right?
Yeah.
They've won 2 games. I don't see them feel the need. If they're not 0-2, they're 2-0, and I think that's going to change the landscape of what they do. So, for me, I'm not starting Brock Purdy. I don't think the San Francisco 49ers stop Brock Purdy. I think you're going to know at game time.
Yeah.
The way I always treat it is, if they're going to start the game, they're probably going to finish the game, unless there's a blowout.
Yeah.
So I look at that situation and think, if Brock Purdy's in the lineup, then that's a different conversation. I just don't think they'll risk him. I think the season is long. They don't feel the need to press it. Carson Wentz is going to play this week. JJ McCarthy is definitely out. Tyrod Taylor's going to play this week. Justin Fields is out. The only decision this week at quarterback in terms of injuries is Daniels. And I think Daniels goes. There's a lot of doom mongering here that they don't think he's going to go. I don't buy it.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry. I don't. I could be wrong, but this feels very similar to the Christian McCaffrey scenario. And again, I think if he's not drafted as high as he was drafted, we wouldn't be getting the kind of commenting that we're getting. And I just always have that reservation of, why are people putting this report out here? Like, what is the derived end goal here? Like, for the coaches, they want the misinformation out there. That gives them the opportunity. So they're not correcting that, then nor are they going to, because it's to their advantage. If they want people thinking that Marcus Mariota is going to go, then that's great for them. I just, for me, I don't look at what they're doing in terms of the Commanders and think that Daniels isn't going to go. Now, if he doesn't log a practice on Friday, I'll change that opinion. But until then, I feel okay with, I have Daniels at 4 this week, and I feel like he's going to go. But any other situation, I think if you've got a Darnold, this is a good matchup for Darnold this week. I'd be starting him, and I'd be starting him with a bit of confidence. And again, he's a classic example of a player who everyone was out of after week 1. I was scathing of his performance as much as anybody. But, he all of a sudden he puts a good week up against the Steelers, who are a good D, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, so he's not quite as bad as everyone thought he was going to be. He just needed, guess what, a week to acclimatize. Yeah. So, again, it's just... I'd start Darnold. I think he'll be fine. Michael Penix Jr. is out there, he's got an absolutely plum matchup here against the Carolina defense. He's going to be just as good.
He wasn't there. I might have took him otherwise, but it's just plug and play because he'll be getting dropped again soon anyway when the others are okay because they only need one. But looking at your rankings, what we were talking about there, you've got Penix at 17, you've got Browning at 20, Darnold 21, Mac Jones 25 if he starts, Carson Wentz 27. So they're all just ideally you don't want to be starting any of them if it's super flex you might have to start one of them. So the rankings are in the Discord, so have a look there if you're not sure.
And there's a question here from it's the Smitty or the E Smitty. 2 QB Superflex leagues. QBs are Purdy, Daniels, Browning, Jones, Rattler. Wow, 5 QBs. I wouldn't have 5 QBs. That would be my first thoughts. RBs are Henderson, Monty, Connors, and Brian Robinson Jr. Someone needs a replacement for Burrow. Would you trade Browning and Monty for Adunze and Mason? I'd probably. I don't think you need to sell Monty. If it's a 2 QB league, I'd be selling him Daniel Jones. I'd be selling him Daniel Jones. I'd be selling him Daniel Jones, unless that's Mac Jones. If it's Mac Jones and it's different, I don't know. If that's Daniel Jones, I'd be selling him for Adunze straight up. And I think if someone's that desperate, they're probably going to have to take it. I think you could be bullish if you've got Daniel Jones in that scenario, knowing you've got a Purdy and a Daniels. It's Mac Jones. Okay, that changes it. I think you could probably push through a trade like that. Like it's hard to tell
how long's Aaron Jones out for?
He's on IR, so minimum of 4 weeks.
So I would be doing it if I like Mason for the next 4 and a 2 days.
I don't think Jones is going to get the job back.
Yeah,
I don't think Jones gets the job back. I think he'll eat into some of the. Mason's going to have to be really bad to lose his job.
You've got Mason as RB7, I think, this week as well.
Yeah, because I don't think they're going to throw the ball.
Yeah,
Carson Wentz has thrown like 20 balls in the last 3 years. Like he's not going to throw the ball that much.
I would smash that trade if it was me. I would definitely take a Dunze and Mason.
Well, he's asking, is that what he offers? I mean, you can offer it. I wouldn't accept that as the Adunze and Mason owner. I'd be shopping around. Like if I was giving up Adunze and Mason, I'd want better than Browning.
No, I'm the other way around. I'd have a Mason and a Dunze all.
But that's my point. Is he's saying, would you trade Browning and Monty? Like you can float it. The worst thing he's going to say to you is no. But if I'm the Adunze and Mason owner, I'm not doing it. I'd shop that trade around, and I'd go get better than Jake Browning. I'd go and get myself a Daniel Jones, for example. I'd go and get myself someone like that. I'd go and get something like a Trevor Lawrence, or just go get a steady pair of hands to just tie me over and see where I get to. So, another question in from Fletch. PPR 2 flex needs 2. ETN, Tyreek, Zay Flowers, and Pollard. Also kind of hesitating on taking both receivers at flex and starting Etienne over Brown. I mean, if this is the flex decisions you have, your team has got to be pretty stacked. I'm starting ETN, I'm starting Flowers. I'm not really bothered about anything else.
They should all do okay. Like,
yeah, they should. But I think Flowers at the moment is killing it.
Yeah.
I don't think it will sustain, but he's killing it at the moment, and the ETN is as well. ETN and Flowers is a pretty easy start for me, like out of those 4. Yeah. Also, how good's your roster that you've got those guys sitting around?
Well, it does feel like to pivot slightly with the question that's just been asked for. One of the items that I had on was I went through your rankings for this week, and I picked out some that I thought are higher than they normally would be, and some that are lower than they would normally be. And some of the people that I mentioned in this post are on that list. So say, for example, players I thought you're higher on than you might have normally been on. If you start with QBs, the 4 I looked at there was you've got Mahomes as QB5. I think he's normally around 10ish in your rankings. So you're obviously big on him this week. Drake May, QB7. Again, he had a good week last week, so he's high. And then you've got Caleb Williams at 10 and Daniel Jones at 11. Both of them are normally quite high, a lot higher than that as well. So they're the QBs. But going into running backs, two of the ones we've just mentioned in the last two posts. So you've got Mason at 7 and you've got Travis Etienne at 13. Etienne probably would have been 30 game week 1 or something like that. So all of a sudden now 2 good games, he's moving up. You've got him at 13. Two QBs that you're quite low on compared to maybe what you would have been in the past or what other people are ranking him as. James Conner's 24 and Hampton is down. You've got Hampton down at 28, which I think he would have been probably about 15 or 16 maybe in week 1, but obviously he's not getting as much of the ball, so you've got him down there at 28.
A lot of this is situational based on the week, right? So I guess to answer some of these, let's start with the Chiefs. They're playing the Giants. Giants' D is available to be passed on at a rate of knots. Yeah. The Chiefs have something to prove at 0-2, backs to the wall. Think they're going to come out and throw the ball a lot, and they're going to get. Smitty keeps asking, would I trade? If you've got Browning and someone wants Browning and Monty for Dunze and Mason, then smash the accept button. I'm just like, I would do that. Like, I would offer that trade. I don't think if I was a Dunze and Mason's owner, I'm not accepting it. Fletch is offered. I got offered Nico for JSN. I'd smash that trade too. As much as JSN is proving to be a target hog, I think that will even out. And I think Nico, I'd always look for the talent overall and think it will go Nico Collins' way this year. I think that the Texans have had some tough situations. Going back to your question here in terms of situational stuff, the Chiefs have got a great matchup this week. The Patriots, their matchup is against the Steelers. They're going to pass the ball a lot. The passing D has not been particularly solid for the Steelers. You look at what Sam Darnold did to them, and Drake May, I think, will could potentially take them apart. You look at Caleb Williams this week. I got the Cowboys, very similar situation. And I just think that Caleb Williams this week is going to have a bit of a bounce back week. He's going to have the opportunity to do that.
DFS players, that's a game to target. I think it's going to be loads of points in that game as well.
Yeah. You would expect that, and you would expect it to be a slog. So with that in mind, you would sit there and think that they're going to have to throw the ball a lot more.
Yeah.
Then we get to Connor. Connor is in a descending situation where Benson is getting involved. So I've hedged a little bit there that we're not seeing elite performance from Connor. So, putting him at the bottom end of the running back 2, there's room there if he goes up to like 18, then I haven't really sunk it too badly, but there's also the room if he sinks to 28. I kind of hedged and gone in the middle there of that range of outcomes. So I've got a player that if I think he's declining, and he's not getting the volume that I was expecting, then I would sit there and I think, okay, I'm not entirely sure in the situation that we are in right now. Plus, the matchup is a little bit challenging against the 49ers. It's hard to run the ball, the 49ers to a certain amount. I would sit there and go, okay, I'm going to stick him. My range of outcomes is 18 to 28. I'm going to put him somewhere in the middle. And that's kind of where I've done with James Conner. ETN is really producing. I was very high on ETN, especially for the first half of this season, and actually was probably too conservative in my weekly ranks because as much as I believed it was going to happen, I didn't necessarily want to bet the farm in my rankings that it absolutely would. But I spoke about Travis Etienne and where I expected him to be on many shows this offseason with Jim Coventry, with Joe Dolan, with many great guests. And I said that Travis Etienne is healthy. Travis Etienne has had a great offseason. That Travis Etienne is going to have a really good start to the season. And I buy into the Liam Cohen knows how to scheme a good running offense because I've seen it firsthand. And so as a result,
as well, isn't
he? I mean, at the time he didn't, but I'm leaning into it. He's playing for a contract. I look into all that and just think it's all lined up for him. Is it sustainable for 17 weeks? I don't think so, which is why when I did my ranks, I kind of had him losing the second half of the season stuff. But, and the fact they've let Bigsby go, that's a big indicator as a plus for Travis Etienne. People are sitting there saying, oh, that's the Baishal Tootin, arrow up, and it certainly is. But it's also a massive arrow up to Travis Etienne. This is a guy that they could have just discarded at the end of the season, a guy that they could have said, well, we'll go with Bixby and we'll go with Tootin, and they're going to be our guys for the end of the season. We're going to let Travis Etienne go out into free agency. That move says to me that they're considering paying Travis Etienne. I'm not saying they're definitely going to do it, but I can tell you now there's conversations between the GM of the Jags and the agent of Travis Etienne, and they are feeling each other out. They are 100% feeling each other out. There is a scenario that Travis Etienne is a Jacksonville Jaguar next season, and especially if he keeps playing the way he is. And so I think that the passing game in Jacksonville is still getting figured out, and I think Liam Cohen is going to rely on them running the football to keep them in games, because that's what's been going on. So that's why I've got ETN at 13
and
this
then
week.
Going on to wide receivers, we've talked about some Zay Flowers already. You've got him as wide receiver 10. So that's obviously, I'd say he was probably 20-ish at the start of the season. He's worked his way up, which we've already talked about. From a positive point of view, that have gone up a bit, but obviously still quite low down, is Wan'Dale Robinson, 35, Franklin, 36, and I can never pronounce his name, Anaimano as 40. So they're ones that might have been like 50 to 60 that have moved up a bit as well, based off how well they're playing so far and how many targets they're getting. But the ones that I wanted to mention more were the red ones, where I've highlighted on this one. So AJ Brown, DJ Moore, and Devontae Smith. So they're all for different reasons, but all three of them are struggling at the moment.
Yeah, so I'll start with Devonta Smith. It's the easiest one to answer. I probably overranked him in the first 2 weeks. Yeah, I don't have I just think I overranked him. He was a player I had wide receiver 45-ish in my season ranks. I had no confidence that he was going to put up a phenomenal season. And I looked at the passing numbers in Philly, and I didn't expect them to improve significantly. They've been in sharp decline, especially with Barkley there. They dropped 20% on the year before. There's just not room for him. So I probably overranked him. Is the honest answer. That I kind of thought that we would see how we got on the first few weeks, in that they had a challenging start as well. The Cowboys and the Chiefs, and I thought they would be games he would get volume in, because I thought they could get behind. They would need to chase the game a little bit if they were to try and win them. When that hasn't happened, I just think the schedule evens out for them. It gets a little bit easier for them over the next few weeks. I don't see a pathway to him being particularly successful in the coming weeks here. Rams this week, it's not an easy game by any stretch, but at the same token, yeah, I just don't see Devonta Smith getting a significant volume, because that passing volume is not there, which kind of ties to AJ Brown's downward spiral. Is, again, the pass rate over expected, or is so bad in Philadelphia at the moment that their pass rate, their expected pass rate is a little nudge over 55%, and they're currently sitting at 50%, which says half the time they pass and half the time they run the ball. Now, that's negative game script and positive game script. I look at that and think they don't really want to pass the ball as much. The passing volume is going to look pretty similar number to what we saw last year. So AJ Brown, where I thought in games against the Chiefs in particular, where I thought he would get more target volume because it would be a close game, and that didn't correlate, it leads me to believe that, yes, he will have some big games at some point this season, but I'm not going to sit here and call it on a weekly basis for that purpose. DJ Moore is a really interesting one. I don't have a set answer as to why that's not translating for him. But it's really clear right now that Roman Dunze is the wide receiver of choice for Caleb Williams right now. And whether that's a Ben Johnson thing, whether that's a scheme thing, whether that's, I could look at some of the separation scores. But at the bottom line of it is that Roman Dunze is just playing better right now.
I listen to quite a lot of pods and read a lot of stuff, and the two players that everyone keeps talking about as the biggest trade candidates are Tyreek Hill and DJ Moore. And a lot of the ones I've listened to, they talk about DJ Moore was saying that everyone keeps talking about Burden being in the slot, but the fact that they've actually got Burden to play where DJ Moore is at the moment in the long term, and that if he went out, it would just free up the other players to all have a bit more of in the game as well, because they've probably got too many people to feed.
Yeah, and that was always going to be a little bit of a concern coming into this situation. I think I'm just going to pull up some stats here just to kind of talk around the Bears a little bit here. So I'm just going to look at the Bears receivers, if you just give me a second. So I'm going to give you the data here on the receivers. So at the moment, Roman Dunze is running slightly more routes than DJ Moore, but it's pretty negligible. He has a better ADOT, 30.7 to Moore's 11.4. Burden has run 13 routes. Like the whole Burden is playing in the slot thing is a bit of a fad. Yeah. Yes, he is, but it's not enough to really affect what's going on. The truth of the matter is it comes down to air yards is a significant part of this. Roman Dunze has got 46.4% of the team's air yard share. DJ Moore has 22.3%. So Roman Dunze is getting free, he's getting downfield, and he's getting the big plays. That is significant. You look at the target share percentage, Roman Dunze, 27.9%, DJ Moore, 16.2%. That DJ Moore number is low. That will increase. We look at the targets per route run. Roman Dunze, 25%, which isn't particularly high, but it's higher. DJ Moore, 15%. Again, not sustainable. That will change for DJ Moore. It will go back in his favor. Yards per route run. DJ Moore, 1.56. Not bad. Not amazing, but not bad. Roman Dunze, 2.14. If we look at... But if we're looking at we look at some of the key numbers here, obviously Roman Dunze has the 3 touchdowns to DJ Moore's 0. So if we start then really digging in, DJ Moore hasn't had an end zone target. Roman Dunze's had 3. And he's had 2 end zone touchdowns. In fact, he's the only receiver to receive end zone targets, but it's a small sample. Look at the first read numbers. This is the real telling number. Roman Dunze is the first read 33.3% of the time. Do you know who the second player is on first reads? Because it's not DJ Moore.
I would say it's not going to be what's name is it, Komet or somebody like that.
It's Omalade Zacchaeus, 21.4% of the time, and then it's DJ Moore.
Yeah.
So then you look at that, and then it's just at this point in time when we're really digging into all of the numbers, it's just showing you that, and again, this correlates to the tape as well. DJ Moore is just, and I'll look at the separation scores as well, but DJ Moore is just he's not getting into the areas of the field where he's being trusted by his quarterback. Now, part of that is Caleb Williams is getting used to a new system. It's similar to what we're seeing in Jacksonville, where it's a complicated system, the Ben Johnson scheme. So he is going to the player who he knows he can get the ball to, which is Roman Dunze. There's also a little bit here where Roman Dunze is separated a little bit better, but more importantly, Roman Dunze has been that sort of out and out, like he's been out on the perimeter winning contested catches. Whereas when you look at DJ Moore, he's kind of been in that sort of intermediate range, and that's actually the range of the field that Caleb Williams is particularly bad. So what Caleb Williams does is he kind of takes a step back, and when he's starting to look, he tries to go out wide. He looks deep. When he realizes that Roman Dunze is not open, he looks around, and before you know it, he's taking a sack. And he did this in college. He did this in the last year. The guy takes too many sacks. He makes too many negative plays. He's having to throw the ball away. His progressions, he's not great at his progressions. Part of what Ben Johnson's remit here is to help him with that, but to design a scheme that's going to allow him to get the ball out of his hands quickly. That has not happened in the first 2 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
That should happen. When that does, the person that will benefit will be DJ Moore. But that has not happened, and it hasn't correlated to the box score yet, but it will. We've got another question here from Dara Fenton. Who are you liking this week in my flex? I don't know who to start out of Ramondre Stevenson, Jerry Jeudy, Scatterbo, RJ Harvey. It's Stevenson. I don't even know the scoring. It's him by a long way over that.
The funny thing is, the ones I've highlighted for tight end, the first one was Tucker Kraft. And it's just like, there's no point even talking about him now. But the question would be, switching the question is, off the top of your head, where does Musgrave fit into this now? Even for just this week? Or does he? Did he just throw to the tight end?
You have to look at it and say that there's got to be a role for him because they've already lost Jaden Reed.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, what was a plethora of options that we were sitting here 2 weeks ago moaning about the fact they spread the ball too much, that there isn't a bona fide sort of lead target share person in this offense. And then all of a sudden we get last week's game and Tucker Kraft comes out and he looks like a stud. And that works out really well. And now he's sustained a potential knee injury and Musgrave comes in. I think it takes Musgrave. You got to remember that Musgrave is coming off his own pretty serious injury. He's not played much football in the last 2 years. There is going to be some rust there. I like the situation of throwing him in if you've got a non-established top 15 tight end already. So if you're sitting there like, I'm going to have to throw in someone like Jatavian Sanders or Chiga Nkonkwo or players like that, like then I'm looking at that situation thinking, yeah, I probably will sit there and I'll probably throw Luke Musgrave in for a chaser. Like I'll chase the points.
Yeah.
But then I'm expecting very little to begin with. So it's a very different scenario.
At the same time, it's impacting the wide receivers as well, isn't it? Because Dubs, Golden, or Wicks might actually get more targets as well.
If you're asking me who the biggest winner is, it's going to be Wicks. Yeah. If Tucker Kraft is ruled out of this game, I tell you now that Wicks is probably going 15 spots up in my rankings.
Yeah,
because the where he operates in the part of the field is where he is going to benefit more than anyone. So I think he is the player that I would be looking at more than anyone.
Which is nice because I picked him up a few times this week already, so I'm happy with that.
Yeah, and I think that's the way you got to go, right? I think that's going to be a really important thing to do. Wicks, I think, is going to come out of this. I think it's going to be inconsistent. I think it's not going to be pretty, but I think, and actually, I think the other thing I would probably do is I'd probably arrow down Jordan Love a little bit.
Yeah,
I don't think loads, but I think he could get a dink here with no Tucker Kraft for sure.
The only other things of note really were from tight ends where you're very high on Zach Ertz this week at 8. And then Andrews, Hawkinson, and Njoku are all outside the top 10 this week, which is unusual, which obviously means the matchups may not be great.
Partly, and I also think partly it's a with Njoku, it's just more the fact that Fanning is there and getting such a prominent role. So I still got him at 10, but yeah,
just 13 Njoku and
13.
Fannon's 14.
Yeah, I'm back for that reason. I think they just split the role.
Andrews 11. They're all just outside the top 10. I suppose Johan Johnson is in the top 10 as well, and he seems to be getting. Did I read something that he's got the most? He has the most targets at the moment. Like something, he would be wide receiver. I think he'd be wide receiver 10 if he was classed as a wide receiver as well at the moment.
I can tell you now.
Because they don't really have anyone else to throw to.
So, if I look at on the season, well, they do, Chris Olave, but if you're looking at, I'll look at PPR. So, at this point in time, Juwan Johnson, and again, it's slightly inflated, but he has 31.5 fantasy points for the year, which would put him at wide receiver 16 in PPR.
Okay, so pretty good then. When most people picking him off waivers last week.
Yeah. But what I would say is his performance has been consistent: 15.6 in week 1, 15.9 in week 2. So he hasn't got like that dip, and then like a Tucker Craft who put 9.9 and then 24.4, for example.
Yeah.
One last question. I just traded James Cook, Nico Collins, and Sutton for Bijan, AJ Brown, full PPR. Did I lose that? It depends who you're adding as well, like who's the third ad, because you've done a 3 for 2. So it'd be interesting to see who you added as the third. Did you lose? Again, without the context of PP, like scoring and divisions and your team. I mean, you got the best player in the trade. I think if we're being generous and we call Nico Collins and AJ Brown a wash, give or take, Bijan is better than James Cook. It's if Sutton is a piece that was laying around in your team not doing anything, and he was on your bench, then yeah, you've done fine because you've improved the starting lineup. If Sutton was in your starting lineup with those two, and you're now all of a sudden having to start, I don't know, Jerry Jeudy at this point in time, doesn't look particularly great. It would depend who that extra piece is. Are they a starting player? Are they not a starting player? You got the best player in the trade, which is always the first indicator of how you've done. But it's why I don't love these sort of 3 for 2 trades, right? Because people offer you, like, I hate being the recipient of like people say, I've given you 3 players for 2. And you're like, yeah, but I've got to drop another player. So you got to factor that in as part of your cost, the same way that you got to pick up a player as a factor of your cost. So if your waiver wire is dead thin and all of a sudden you're now going to pick up Luke Musgrave, gives you a chance in, or you're having to pick up, I don't know who's still available out on waivers that you could pick up in a fairly deep league. But if you, let's say, for example, you were in a deepish league and you were having to pick up, I don't know, Calvin Austin, maybe that's the best player that's available in your waivers. I'd sit there and say, well, it depends on what the rest of the squad looks like. I don't think you've done too badly, but if you've dropped 3 starters for 2, and Nico Collins and AJ Brown's a wash, and I'm being generous there, I think, then, you know, you got to make the points up. So anything else you want to cover as we are heading to the top of the hour here?
I haven't got anything on mine. You had a couple of points, but one of them was to go through the review of week 2, which we're not going to be doing now after an hour and a half. And then the other one was you'd made a joke around is Jonathan Taylor this year's Barkley.
I think that's a joke. I think it's accurate, right? I think that Jonathan Taylor is this year's Saquon Barkley at this stage.
Jonathan Taylor's Jonathan Taylor, though. Like, he's just.
But what I mean by the context of that is that this time last year, Saquon Barkley was a player that not many people were taking.
Yeah.
That high up the board. He was a late second, third round player, which is where Jonathan Taylor was going. Yeah. He was a player that had 2 years of very little production due to injury. And we all thought that the best days had gone from Saquon Barkley potentially, same as people had thought with Jonathan Taylor. And now we're sitting here with Jonathan Taylor currently as RB6, which doesn't sound overly impressive, but he is only 5.4 points away from the top RB, which at the moment is James Cook, but he's only like 3 points behind Christian McCaffrey. So like you look at his production, it's sustainable, and there's a pathway to that sustaining. And so for me, I just think that Jonathan Taylor is I had him in the start of the season as my RB4, and I feel pretty good that is the trajectory that we are heading towards him being an RB3, RB4, RB5 on the season. And And I think it's a testament to these players who keep themselves in phenomenal shape, who come back from adversity. And, you know, I think a lot of people were down on the Colts. A lot of people thought the Colts were in contention for the first overall pick. A lot of people thought Daniel Jones was a joke. A lot of people thought that this offense was not good. I didn't think that. And I don't want to sit here and victory lap myself every time I get something right, but because I get plenty wrong. But I look at the Jonathan Taylor situation, thought there was a market opportunity there for where he was going in drafts compared to what we know he can do because he's already done it. And when you put him, and again, this is putting faith in coaching. If you understand coaches in the NFL, you know who the good ones and the not good ones are. Shane Steichen's a heck of a football coach. He's a heck of a football coach. He doesn't get the credit that he deserves, but it proves to you that the AR-15 and drafting Andy Richardson was a big mistake for this franchise. It's a very uncharacteristic mistake for this franchise because they don't get a lot of things wrong in their player recruitment. But it was a terrible, terrible decision that held this team back 2 years.
Well, they got the Tyler Warren call right, didn't he?
Yeah, and it was again an excellent pickup, a player they needed, a player who's dynamic. You look at what they've got on offense with the weapons that they have. They don't need an elite quarterback. Would absolutely help this team. Of course it would, but they just need someone who's competent. And Daniel Jones is a competent quarterback. He's better than most people give credit to and for, and hopefully he's on this arc that Baker Mayfield has been on, of a player who was in a system of bad coaches, never quite fitted, square peg round hole, and hopefully now Daniel Jones is a player who is with a good coach in a good system with a good set of players, and he can actually show why he went top 6 in the NFL draft.
Yeah, he can run.
Yeah, and he can run. And the tush push is a thing in Indy as well. So there's that as well. But yeah, I think what I'd finish on with this week was week 2 really backed up a lot of what we saw in week 1. We're starting to see who the bad teams are, and there's a good amount of them. We know who the good teams are for the most part. And what we're now starting to see is fantasy situations that were ambiguous are becoming clearer. Couple of situations became a bit ambiguous. That New York running scheme, we know it's going to go Scatterbow's way. It's kind of the way we always thought it was going to go. It was just a case of when and not if. We know that's happening a little bit more in a few other teams as well. So Bill Krosky-Merritt has got to the top of the tree, which again was something that people expected. It was a case of when and not if. We are seeing this with Hampton, of course. We're seeing it. Tootin is a bit different because I actually think that ETN could stick around a bit longer. But again, we're starting to see him progress through in a situation that we kind of expected. Benson is now starting to come through a little bit versus Connor. We put on here Washington's running back room. We'll finish with that one. That actually, I think that I look at Connor, and I think he's a player that could be in a little bit of a decline here in terms of Benson taking more touches. That's Arizona. In Washington, I think you look at Krosky-Merritt's going to be the bell cow. Jeremy McNichols is the Austin Eckler replacement. He is questionable for the weekend. That'll be interesting to see if he goes. If he goes, he'll be the Austin Eckler light replacement. And then Chris Rodriguez is going to be the backup to Bill. That's how I see that running back room right now. So Bill Rodriguez is a handcuff. He's not a player with any flex appeal. Flex appeal would go to Jeremy McNichols, but I do think McNichols is going to need some time because I don't think he's 100%. And then I think we'll see the rest of that come through. And then, Quincy Judkins, he's a player people should be starting this week with what he did at the weekend with 15 touches off 20 snaps. That's one I would be getting fired up in your flexes for this week for sure. I think we can end it there. Any more questions? Another long show. It's been great. Danny, thank you for jumping on as always, getting us prepared, getting us hyped. We'll drop the cornerback wide receiver matchups to watch in the Discord tomorrow. Any questions, stick them in the Discord. Do join the Discord. The link is below. Join our Patreon. There's a lot of really good stuff on there. You get a free copy of our book as well for signing up. And you can do it on trial as well. So you can try it out for a couple of weeks and try it out and see what you think. I think it's a week, actually. Final comment is Buffalo will destroy Miami tonight. Yeah, 12.5 points probably tells you the story in its own right. We've said this a few times. But thank you very much for joining on. Lots of new names to the chat. really good to see. For some reason, the Extreme didn't work. Maybe Elon has decided that we're the next Jimmy Kimmel. Who knows? And has decided that we're not allowed to go live on X, even though we're not going to mention anything political on here at all. But if you are just joining us for the first time, please hit the like and subscribe. Massively helps us. To everyone else, have a phenomenal week 3. Danny, win lots of matchups this week. Get those ships lined up for the harbor. To everyone else that's at those dubs, join the Discord, get involved in the conversation. But love and appreciate each and every one of you. Have a phenomenal weekend. Tell your family you love them. And more importantly, keep rushing.